So in this build, we are just increasing the maximum number of companions you have. We will be running all the companion skills and trying to maximize their damage. But in this build, you yourself won't be useless, as you will be dealing the bulk of the damage as well. We are incorporating Bestial Rampage in this build, so we will be switching from Bear to Wolf, and vice versa a lot. A hybrid build, if you will. And we will be using mainly Poison for this build. So let's go over the skills we will use quickly. First, Blood Howl. Shapeshift into a werewolf and then howl furiously, healing you for 20% of your maximum life. And then of course we're running all 3 companion skills. The wolves, which deal okay damage, I guess, but their active is not too bad. It does do a pretty quite substantial single target damage. And then we have vines, which are insanely good. They do periodic poison damage, and then the active immobilizes all enemies around you and poison them for over 2 seconds. And then we have ravens. They have okay passive damage, but their active is, I would say, pretty strong. And then for basic attack, we're running maul, and our core skill is going to be shred, which is a 3 combo attack, and if you get the modifier in the skill, it also does poison damage over 5 seconds. So before we go into all the skills aspects, the Paragon boards, I want to go over how the build works, all the important aspects and Paragon boards that makes the build. So let's start with some key aspects first. Aspect of the Stampede is probably the most important aspect for the build. So you gain 1 additional companion, and on top of which your companion skills deal 10 to 20% bonus damage. So you'll essentially have like 3 wolves, 2 vines, 2 ravens. The next big one is probably aspect of Wild Rage. Your companions gain the bonuses from Bestial Rampage key passive. So the 20% attack speed that you proc from being a werewolf and 20% damage bonus from being a werebear, all your companions will get that passive bonus. And another aspect that we want to run is aspect of the alpha. This is where your wolf companions become werewolves and they spread rabies. This is also pretty gonna be vital because they're gonna be spreading rabies to enemies all around. So pretty much most of the time, all the enemies around you will be poisoned, which is gonna be super useful for the Paragon board node that we will be taking, which is Heightened Malice. When 3 or more enemies around you are poisoned, you get a 45% bonus damage increase. And then we will of course be using Night Howler's aspect. Blood Howl increases critical strike chance by 5 to 10%. So this also affects your companions as well if you run this aspect. Not just your companions, players as well. So it's gonna be super useful for this. And last but not least, we are running Shepherd's aspect. So this boosts your core skill damage for every companion you have active. So this synergizes really well, of course, with Stampede. So that's 3 active wolves, 2 vines, and 2 ravens. So you're getting a bonus damage increase around 40-50% on your core skill. That's what I meant. You won't be useless in this build as well. You will be dealing a lot of damage. Alright, next. And of course we'll be running Bestial Rampage. And that's why we are running Maul and Shred. So most of the time we'll be in werebear form because we're gonna be like autoing all the time. The difficult part, I guess it's not so difficult. The difficult part is probably trying to stay in werewolf form for 2.5 seconds. But that should be easily done if we just do 2 shreds. Just use 2 shreds when you have enough spirit. Like the 3 combos of shred, it probably takes around 1 second to proc all 3. So if you don't want any downtime and damage, you probably just do 2 shreds. That should be enough, 2.5 seconds. And you'll get the attack bonus speed for 15 seconds for both you and your companions. And then the werebear part is pretty easy here. Just gonna be autoing, so most of the time this increased damage will be on most of the time. So this build will be mainly using poison. And then in this build, you want to focus on critical strike chance and critical strike damage. So why critical strike chance and critical strike damage? Most of the poison skills, they benefit so much from critical strike damage and chance, such as Envenom and Toxic Claws from the skill tree. Poisoned enemies take 30% additional critical strike damage, and critical strikes with werewolf skills deal 23% of their base damage as poisoning damage over 4 seconds. So huge synergies there with poison and critical strike chance and damage. Then there's the other aspect, which is, I think, insane, is this aspect of Changeling's Debt. So damaging a poisoned enemy with a werebear skill will instantly deal 120% to 150% of the poisoning damage and consume the poisoning. So you basically don't have to wait for the poison to go off. You can instantly proc it, and then the damage goes off. I just think that's insanely strong. And then also it's a basic skill, right? The maul, and it's super easy to proc. So any poison damage you do, you're gonna be proccing it instantly and don't have to wait for it to tick down to do damage to bosses or mobs or whatever. Another huge benefit of running critical strike chance is pack leader, which is one of the boons from the Druid Spirit boons. So its lucky hit critical strikes have up to 20% chance to reset a cooldown of your companion skills. So just imagine every time this procs, all your companion skills are resetting and you can use it again. And last two betas I've tested, I mean, at first the Wolves active wasn't that great, but the last beta, it was pretty good single target damage. And the Vines, I think Vines are pretty OP from the start, and it still felt really great last beta. And Ravens, if you take the vulnerable chance on the skill tree, that's also really good. So overall, just amazing. Pack leader, just amazing. Just resetting all the skills on every critical strike chance. I mean, if it's a lucky hit. So the Paragon boards, there's not many things that buffs companions on the Paragon boards. Actually, nothing at all. I mean, none of the nodes really help companions. Only a few glyphs do. So we will mostly be taking Heightened Malice, if 3 or more enemies are poisoned nearby, 45% increased damage to you. That's probably the most important node we'll be taking, and on that board we'll be taking damage to poison enemies, because most of the enemies are going to be poisoned from the wolves, from your shred, from the vines. There's so many sources of poison on this build, so I think this Hidden Malice Paragon board is a must. And after that, there's a few other options for Paragon boards to take, but I'm probably going with Legendary node Inner Beast. So after shapeshifting, your spirit costs are reduced by 10% for 5 seconds. And then you're shapeshifting most of the time, but I think we can only get up to 20% reduced cost, because to switch forms, we have to use Shred, which means we're already using Spirit. So when we switch from Werewolf, using an auto attack with Maul, that's 10% increase. And then we switch to Werewolf to use Shred, that's 20%. I think only 20% is possible with this build, unless you use Howl in between. But yeah, that might be a bit hard. But the next thing we really want to take from that Paragon board is the critical strike damage. And then the glyphs. So these are just a few important ones for this build. The best probably one is the passive portion of skills deal 80% increased damage for your companions. The wild glyph. And then the bonus, which is for every fight intelligence within range, purchase within range, companion skills deal 5% increased damage. So this is the only glyph that can maximize companions damage. There was one more, but then it only increased non-physical damage, so I didn't really take that. And then we went for the Shapeshifter glyph. Shapeshifting has 20% chance to cause the skill's damage to critically strike. We're shapeshifting all the time, so this will help us to proc critical strike, which you know now is really important for the build. Then we're running Fang and Claw, while in Werewolf or Werebear form, close enemies take increased damage from you. So this is up all the time since we're either in Werebear form or Werewolf form all the time from basic attack and from core skill. So yeah, that's a quick overview of how the build works and how all the skills, glyphs, Paragon boards come together to make the build. Now let's check out the rest of the aspects and skills and Paragon boards that I took. So I just want to quickly go over all the other aspects that I've used in the build. I will have the link of the D4 builds in the comments below, in the video's description and my pinned comment, so you can just check it out there if you want to skip this part. So I've gone over Stampede, yep, one additional companion, and then we're using Bestial Rampage, Wild Rage aspect, then Shepherd's aspect. So this will be your choice, I guess. If you are using offhand, you can go for Smiting aspect, increased critical strike chance to injured enemies. 10-20%, that's actually a lot. I guess this will be good against elites and bosses because they're gonna be injured after the first attack, unless they heal themselves up full. Then of course we're running Night Haulers, critical strike chance to you and your companions. Super good. For boots, I just went a looting aspect. If you get injured while crowd control, you become unstoppable. So you just break out of the CC. So the only skills that has unstoppable are, I believe, Bulwark and Trample. And in this build, we're not running both of them, so I just thought I'd take a looting aspect just in case you do get CC'd. You can just break out of it. And then for pants, I went with aspect of might. Basic skills grant 20% damage reduction. We will be autoing a lot with Maul to proc the poison and just to get spirit. So just some defensive aspects since we are not running too many defensive skills, just Bloodhaw, which only heals you. And then the gloves, in the gloves we're running the aspect of the alpha. Your companions become werewolves. And then for the chest, we're running Skinwalker's aspect. When you use a shapeshifting skill that changes your form, gain X life. If you have full life, gain the same amount as Fortify. So again, we're shapeshifting a lot, so I think this is a huge benefit for us. And then finally, for the helmet, we're running, of course, Changeling's Depth. I already went over how good this is, and then you'll be proccing that all the time because your basic attack is small. Then we have the Spirit Boons. Here we'll be taking Gift of the Stag, Maximum Spirit. The rest, don't really want Thorns. I mean, you could take this if you're taking too much damage again, if you want to go defensive. And then reduce the duration of controlling pair effects. I don't think this is good. So, yeah. And then we'll be running 2 from Eagle. Critical strike chance, critical strike damage. No brainer here. Then for Wolf, we'll be running Pack Leader, of course. Huge if this lucky hit goes off, because you will be maxing out Wolves, Poison Creeper, and Ravens, so that's going to be a lot of damage between all 3. And if it resets. Then for Snake, we are running Masochistic. Critical strikes with shapeshifting skills heal you. We're shapeshifting all the time. We will be healing off critical strikes from Maul and Shred. The rest, Nature Magic, Calm Before the Storm doesn't really apply to this build. Overload doesn't apply, nor Obsidian Slam. So the only option is this. The only option, but a really good option, because we will be doing a lot of critical strikes. And skill tree, we just have 1 in Maul. We just want to use this to gain spirit, proc poison damage. We're going to max out Shred, of course. That's our main damage source. We're definitely grabbing Predatory Instinct, critical strike chance against close enemies. Critical strike chance really important for the build. And then we're going to grab Iron Fur, damage reduction while in Werebear form. And we will be in Werebear form most of the time. And the bonus persists for 3 seconds after leaving Werebear form. So since we just want to be in Werewolf form for 2.5 seconds, that bonus should persist for the full amount. So we're getting this passive bonus most of uptime is probably like 99% of the time. Then of course Howl, we just have 1 point in Howl. And I guess this one's up to you. Blood Howl generates 20 spirit or attack speed by 15%. I only took this because this also affects companions and your allies. So I want to buff them as well with 50% attack speed. If Blood Howl didn't have that aspect, which affects companions, I would probably just take innate Blood Howl. Then of course this is a companion build, so we're maxing all the companion skills. And we're taking Call of the Wild, 30% bonus damage for all companions. For wolves, we're taking Brutal Wolves. When you critically strike, they gain 20% attack speed for 3 seconds, and you're going to be critting most of the time. So this will proc a lot of the times. And then Poison Creeper. Poison Creeper's attack active poison duration is increased by 3 seconds. Critical strike chance is increased by... Actually, this is probably a mistake. I think we should take... Like, your critical strike chance is increased by 20% against enemy strangled by Poison Creeper. This is probably the better one here. And for Ravens, Brutal 2 additional Ravens purely attack enemies. So here, I'm not sure if they add to the aspect value of more companions, more core skill damage. This probably doesn't because it says active. This is just 2 Ravens just randomly appears, I think. This is not active Ravens. So 1 Raven flies above you and purely attacks your enemies for 30 seconds. I mean, we will have to see on release if these 2 does apply to the core skill damage increase, then we probably take this. If not, we're definitely taking this one, which causes vulnerable for 3 seconds. And then the next skills, we definitely take all of this for sure. Neurotoxin and Venom, 30% additional critical strike damage. And then critical strikes with werewolf skills deal their base damage as poison damage over 4 seconds. I think these are musts for our build. And then in this row, we want to take these as well. Shapeshifting fortifies you for 5% base life. And upon shapeshifting into a werewolf or werebear, gain 12% damage reduction against elites. So this will be up all the time. So I think the hiding senses is really good. 12% damage reduction. It'll be up all the time. Natural fortitude, I think this is just alright. You will be shapeshifting a lot, but not too much since you can only use shred when you have enough spirit for 2 shreds. But yeah, we'll see. Still a good pickup, I think. Since we are lacking a lot of defensive skills, any defensive skill is good here. And of course, we're running Bestial Rampage, which also affects our companions. Finally, the Paragon boards. I won't go too much into detail here, but for glyphs, we definitely take the Wild Glyph first. The passive portion of your companion skills deal 80% increased damage, almost double the damage of your minions. Not the active, but the passive, their auto attacks. And then the first board I go into is Heightened Malice. If 3 or more poison enemies nearby, you deal 45% increased damage. I would say this is maybe not good when the boss doesn't like really spawn ads. This might be not that good, but if there's any amount of mobs, this is pretty damn good. Because most of the minions around you are going to be poisoned from rabies from your werewolves or from your shred, poison creeper. A lot of sources do poison. And we just grab most of the notes here. We just grab poison resistance because it's on the way. Damage to poison enemies. Damage reduction from enemies that are poisoned. Damage to poison enemies. And you can also grab this if you have spare points. And the next board I go into is Inner Beast. Spirit cost reduced by 10% up to 30%. Again, we can probably only proc 20% of it, but I think it's still fine because we want to grab critical strike damage nodes from here. And we might as well also get the shapeshifting skill damage because it's really close to a glyph. And here I slot in the close enemies take increased damage from you. And the bonus from this is 50% bonus to all magic nodes within range. That's why I also took the armor nodes here because it's giving 50% increase to this. So this is from 50 it becomes 75. So you might as well grab the armor nodes here as well, just for more defenses. And the next board after that, I would probably go into Lust for Carnage. Critical strikes with werewolf skills restore 2 spirits, so we will be critical striking a lot with Shred. This is not that great because that's probably the only thing that can proc this. But the other Paragon boards also don't really give that great benefit to our build. I mean, Ancestral Guidance seems good on paper, but we will be only using 2 shreds every 10-15 seconds if we have enough spirit. So that's only after using 2 shreds you gain 30% increased damage for 5 seconds. So you probably have to use 3-4 shreds if you want to maximize this damage output. So that's kind of the reason I didn't take this, although you can take it if you want. And then finally I went into Thunderstruck board. I just wanted to grab critical strike damage nodes from here. And then, of course, you want to grab the glyph. Glyph is pretty powerful. So another defensive. So for here, I took a defensive glyph. You gain 10% damage reduction against close enemies. So yeah, that's about it for Paragon boards. Not too crazy. The only thing that gives boost to companion is this glyph here. The rest you just want to grab like critical strike damage and whenever you can some defensive nodes. So yeah, that's about it for the build. Again, I will have the link to this build in the description and in the pinned comment. But yeah, do leave a comment if you think I can improve on this build. The build is of course untested. I'll only get to test it when the game actually launches. I've only got to play in the betas, the 25 level beta and the 20 level beta, so yeah. But overall, I think the build does synergize pretty well. But yeah, let me know.